It was one of the steamiest scenes in early Bond history, and it almost never made it to the screen. A certain moment between the icy Colonel Rosa Klebb and the alluring Tatiana Romanova carried a quiet tension, one that censors weren't ready for. But what exactly happened? And why has that scene stirred whispers for decades? Stick around, because this isn't just your average Bond bombshell. This was the second installment in the James Bond franchise, a direct follow-up to Dr. No, and it wasn't just building on that success, it was defining the formula. Directed by Terrence Young and starring Sean Connery, From Russia with Love introduced elements that would become Bond staples. Exotic locations, high-tech gadgets, an icy femme fatale, and of course, a nefarious supervillain organization. The film's central players included Connery, returning with more confidence and charm as 007. Italian actress Daniela Bianchi as Tatiana Romanova. The beautiful Soviet clerk supposedly defecting to the West, Pedro Armendariz as Bond's charismatic Turkish contact Karim Bey, and the unforgettable Lotte Lenya as Rosa Klebb, the shoe-stabbing villainess whose inspiration came straight out of Ian Fleming's Cold War fears. The plot was a tangled web of double crosses, subterfuge, and seduction. Bond is sent to Istanbul to retrieve a Lecter decoding machine offered by Tatiana, who claims she's defecting out of love for Bond. But MI6 suspects a trap, and rightly so. The whole thing is a setup by Spectre, introduced here as the real puppet masters, to get revenge for the death of Dr. No. With Tatiana as bait and killer Red Grant, played menacingly by Robert Shaw, lurking in the shadows, Bond must navigate a series of escalating dangers, from assassinations to a brutal train car brawl. Behind the scenes, the stakes were just as high. Following Dr. No's surprise success, United Artists doubled the budget and fast-tracked production. But that meant chaos. The script, penned primarily by Richard Maybaum, was rewritten constantly, even while scenes were filming. The entire Spectre subplot and Red Grant's expanded role were added last minute. Filming took place across Pinewood Studios, Istanbul, and Scotland. Political tensions during the Cold War made filming in the actual USSR impossible, and to qualify for British funding, 70% of the film had to be shot in the UK or Commonwealth countries. So, scenes like the Gypsy Camp, supposedly in Turkey, were actually built at Pinewood. Sid Kane recreated the encampment from scratch. Director Terrence Young nearly didn't survive the production. While scouting boat chase locations in Scotland, his helicopter crashed into the sea. Trapped underwater in an air bubble in the canopy, he was rescued and returned to set, arm in a sling, within hours. He wasn't the only one in danger. During the helicopter attack sequence, an inexperienced pilot flew dangerously close to Sean Connery, nearly killing the star. One camera operator wasn't as lucky. A helicopter blade clipped his leg, leading to an emergency amputation. Pedro Armendariz faced his own private battle. Suffering from terminal cancer, likely contracted on the set of The Conqueror, filmed near a U.S. nuclear test site, he accepted the role of Karim Bey to provide for his family. The production rushed to shoot all his scenes in 2 weeks. Often in pain and unable to walk, he was doubled in many shots. He died by suicide just days after filming wrapped. Even Bianchi's beauty couldn't escape production woes. Her driver fell asleep en route to a shoot, crashing the car and bruising her face. Scenes had to be postponed for 2 weeks. And when it came to certain shots, like the infamous periscope view of her legs, director Young wasn't pleased with her appearance, so a leg double was used. Her thick Italian accent led to her being entirely dubbed by Barbara Jefford. Then there was Rosa Klebb. Lotte Lenya's portrayal is memorable not just for the poisoned shoe blade, but for a quietly controversial moment that almost never made it into the final cut. The film adaptation only hints at Klebb's interest in Tatiana. Most notably, in a scene where Klebb places her hand on Tatiana's knee. But this was a heavily censored version of what was originally intended. In Ian Fleming's original novel, Klebb is explicitly portrayed as a lesbian, and her scene with Tatiana was far more provocative. In the book, Tatiana is summoned not to an office but to Klebb's apartment. There, Klebb flirts with her, then leaves the room and returns wearing lingerie, clearly attempting to seduce her. A deeply uncomfortable Tatiana flees. That entire setup was deemed far too risky for 1963. British and American censors threatened to shut the production down if anything that explicit made it to screen. So the scene was rewritten, toned down, and reduced to that single suggestive knee touch. Even that almost got axed. It's become one of the earliest examples of queer coding in Bond films, a blink and you'll miss it moment that speaks volumes, especially when placed in the context of its time. It was a bold, subversive whisper of a scene that hinted at something much more daring beneath the surface. Adding to the tension, real-life animosity brewed on set. Martine Beswick and Eliza Gurr, playing the gypsy girls who fight over a man, actually despised each other. Gurr accused Beswick of sleeping with Young, fueling their fierce on-screen catfight. Elsewhere, actor Vladek Shaybal clashed with producer Harry Saltzman, walking off set until Saltzman was barred from giving him direction. And talk about behind-the-scenes cameos. The film's romantic gondola ending features director Terrence Young's wife filming the lovers as a tourist. Despite the tumult, From Russia with Love was a box office smash. It broke records and confirmed Bond's staying power. Critics and audiences responded positively, even if the British Board of Film Censors had their reservations. JFK, a major Fleming fan, privately screened the movie at the White House just 2 days before his assassination. It would be the last film he ever watched. Sean Connery later declared it his favorite Bond film. Daniel Craig would echo that sentiment decades later, and Steven Spielberg, impressed by Robert Shaw's performance, cast him as Quint in Jaws, proving that Bond's influence extended far beyond MI6. As for that elusive seduction scene, the original setup, with Klebb in lingerie trying to woo a visibly disturbed Tatiana, never made it past the script stage. But even in its watered-down form, it left an impression. That tiny, uncomfortable gesture became a piece of queer cinema history, a subversive moment that managed to sneak past 1960s censorship, even if it had to whisper instead of shout. From Russia with Love didn't just advance the Bond blueprint, it solidified it. And it did so while nearly falling apart at every turn. Now it's time to hear from you. What do you think? Was Rosa Klebb's scene with Tatiana just clever innuendo, or was something more explicit left on the cutting room floor? Let us know in the comments.